Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa McVie and I am part of the OARC education team. In this short video, I will be providing a high-level overview of some recent changes that have been made in Section 2 of OARC's popular resource guide entitled Supporting Your Home's Residence Council. If you're not familiar with the resource guide, I've pulled a picture of the cover for you on this slide to help jog your memory. It might be helpful to try to locate this resource guide so you can follow along during today's video. This guide was published about 6 years ago and distributed in hard copy to all long-term care homes across Ontario. This guide can also be accessed online in its entirety on the OARC webpage. The guide is designed to help resident council leaders, resident council assistants, and the home administrator support and sustain effective residence councils in their homes. The OARC education team is re-releasing sections of this four-part guide with some updates in order to highlight some new promising practices and to help residence councils simplify and streamline their operations wherever possible. We wanted to share some refreshed material that is using the most current language and terminology. Many of the updates that I'll be walking you through today are reflective of some of the culture change that has been taking place in long-term care. For those who may not be familiar with the term culture change, I've tried to put together some images to help visually represent the transformative journey that we've been on in the long-term care sector. If you think back, even a few decades ago, long-term care homes were largely referred to as nursing homes or homes for the aged. There was really a focus on illness and decline and a mindset of dependence and a loss of control. People moving into long-term care were expected to adapt to the routines and the schedules, which were very much like acute care settings or other institutions. Over time, we've started to see homes moving away from this institutional model of operations to a more social model of living, where residents are at the center of all decisions that are made in the home. Culture change in long-term care exists because of committed team members from all disciplines and roles within the home deciding together that long-term care homes are just that, the home of every resident living there. A home working within a culture change philosophy creates endless opportunities for residents to explore and find purpose, peer support, avenues for self-expression and self-determination, and the team commits together to doing what they can to ensure that the residents' lived experience is as home-like as possible. The voice of residents is the center hallmark of culture change. Culture change really requires a re-examination of the status quo, looking at how we've always done things to explore new ways, more inclusive ways to work and live in long-term care that supports residents' choice, autonomy, and alleviates boredom, depression, and isolation. It also requires a strengthening of relationship building amongst people living and working in the home, and a definite shift in the language. And these changes over time and many of the promising practices that have been the driving force behind many of the resource guide refresh updates that we'll be speaking to today and in our forthcoming videos. Throughout the resource guide, you'll notice that we have changed our references to staff to team members instead. The term team member is more inclusive and positive in nature. People who work in long-term care homes are part of a team. This change is reflective of the culture change that I was just speaking to. You'll also notice that the term staff assistant has also changed to become residence council assistant, and you'll see that change throughout the entire guide. In subsections 2.1 through 2.3, there are no major changes. These sections help you review what a residence council is. It delves into some of the benefits, functions, and powers of a residence council. You'll also find an overview of the legislation from the Long-Term Care Homes Act as it relates to residence councils. To provide clarification and to enhance your understanding, we have pulled out some sections of text directly from the legislation, and underneath that text, we provide some simplified interpretations of the legislation. Some of the more significant updates to Section 2 of the Resource Guide occur in subsection 2.4. This section emphasizes the role that all stakeholders play in ensuring the success of the Residence Council. Residents, team members, home management, volunteers, family members and friends, and members of the surrounding community are all involved in creating supportive connections and meaningful partnerships to enhance the council. This section showcases some opportunities for increasing engagement and connecting with the community. Partnerships between the residence council and the management team in the home are explored in detail, including the importance of having ongoing consultations between the residents and the leadership in the home, as well as ongoing involvement and communication about quality improvement efforts. This section also touches on the importance of addressing issues brought forward by the council in a timely manner, keeping in mind that 10 calendar day turnaround for the administrator to provide a written response for the council, acknowledging the concern or the question that was brought forward. In this section, we also speak to the idea of culture change and the role that home management can play to help set the tone that is conducive for culture change in the home. We share a number of enabling and person-centered practices that are really just small changes or ideas that you might implement that will have the biggest impact on the relationships and the lived experiences in the home. We share a number of examples here as well of how some management teams have supported the work of the Residence Council, and these might be worth reviewing at an upcoming council meeting. This next subsection, council and their assistant. We talk about the scope and the qualities of a strong assistant. They recognize the need to strike that delicate balance between helping and supporting the residents versus doing everything for the council. This involves finding ways to enable and empower residents. We talk about specific ways that resident council assistants can support council operations, including meetings. And if you jump ahead to subsection 2.6 in this resource guide, we've also put together a quick self-assessment that can be filled out by the resident council assistant, so there's an opportunity for some self-reflection and building capacity in this role. I think it's worth noting that a strong resident council assistant will ask for feedback. They want to know how they can continue to improve and best meet the needs of the residence council. So the best way to do this is to seek feedback from the resident council leadership team. And we've got some steps listed here in this section on how the process might look. The suitability of the residence council assistant is to be reviewed on an annual basis. If you're using the OARC meeting minute template, you'll notice that this document will cue you to do this once a year to look at the council assistant's qualities and to make sure that that person is a good fit in carrying out the supportive role of assistant to the council. In this same subsection, we also look at partnering with volunteers and team members. And we look at some of the opportunities that people in these roles may provide assistance to help residents council achieve their goals. We also talk about partnerships between the residence council and the family council, which is another very important relationship. We ask you to consider coordinating efforts between the two councils to work to reach a mutual goal. What's important here is to find a communication system so that you can have ongoing updates and keep in touch with each other's councils between the respective meetings. So perhaps that means having a subcommittee with representation from both Residence Council and Family Council to come together on a regular basis and perhaps choose an area to focus on for quality improvement through collaboration. In subsection 2.5, we learn about 3 common Residence Council structures, including town hall meetings, board of directors, and the blended model. And as a Residence Council, you are free to choose what works for you based on the needs of your home, and this may change over time. This section also introduces the idea of subcommittees for your Residence Council, and it touches on what they can look like and some of the benefits of establishing subcommittees to carry out specific work or for a specific purpose, like a welcoming committee, for example. In subsection 2.7, we review some of the common characteristics and qualities of an effective Residence Council. It might be helpful to review these as a group periodically, as there's always room to grow and set goals to strengthen your council. Subsection 2.8 is a great place for residents that are looking to establish a Residence Council in the home. This will be particularly helpful when new long-term care homes are built and eventually occupied by residents who will be looking for some specific guidance around how to go about planning and forming a Residence Council in the home for the first time. Even for existing Residence Councils, it might be helpful to revisit this section as a bit of a refresher on some of those foundational areas and work that goes on to set up a successful council and to maintain it. In subsection 2.9, this also ties into the idea of Residence Council foundations, because establishing a strong leadership team is an essential building block in the foundation of a sustainable and effective Residence Council. You can refer to this section if you're interested in learning more about the various styles and structures that may work for your Residence Council, including the traditional structure, which is characterized typically by a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. We also have a merged officers model, shared leadership team model, and a board of directors model, which essentially has the officers or the council executive plus the role of home area representatives taken together to create that board of directors. I've also linked a helpful webinar here on this slide that you may wish to watch. This provides a great overview of the various leadership styles that we've mentioned above, and it highlights some of the benefits specifically on the shared leadership approach, which really is focusing on resident strengths and how everyone can contribute in meaningful ways. So we also talk about how you might go about transitioning to a new model as starting on a trial basis, and then seeing if that works for your group. Also included in this section is a list of some of the desirable qualities for your leadership team. So these are helpful to keep at the back of your mind when you're looking to help identify or nominate strong Resident Council leaders in your home. We have a list of specific roles and responsibilities that might exist on your council's leadership team. These might be held by an individual resident leader, or it might be shared amongst a leadership team, depending on the leadership structure that you've selected for the council. Perhaps the biggest change that you'll notice in section 2 is that the subsections on developing your Residence Council's constitution and terms of reference have been removed. Based on our own team's observations and feedback we've received from various Residence Councils, it was decided that there was a great deal of overlap between the 3 documents that we had included in the binder. And that was the bylaws, the constitution, and the terms of reference. So to simplify and streamline your council documentation and those protected practices or rules, it was determined that councils only need to develop their set of bylaws. The bylaw document was selected to be the standalone document because it is the clearest and easiest to understand. It offers the same amount of protection for your council practices and gives the same operational guidance, but in a more simplified and clear format. If you're not familiar with bylaws, they are a set of rules that are adopted by an organization or group in order to govern its membership and to regulate its affairs. Essentially, bylaws are designed to provide guidance and direction. So having bylaws in place will help eliminate any confusion. It encourages consistency when perhaps something is challenged due to maybe changes on your leadership team or leaders in the home. Also, if there's interpersonal relationships that come up or differing opinions, it's very helpful to always have something in writing to refer back to. So that's why bylaws are so essential. In order to help residence councils, OARC has developed a template which will help you in developing your own bylaws. The template is designed to capture important aspects of residence council all in one document. It's certainly not prescriptive. It allows your residence council to customize all the details. If your council has yet to create a set of these foundational bylaws, you might consider presenting the idea of doing so at an upcoming residence council meeting. And if you're looking for our template, it can be found on the OARC website under the Tools section. I also wanted to mention that we have updated a practice or a timeline for practice, and we now recommend that you review your bylaws on an annual basis. Previously, the text had said that your bylaws should be updated in line with your election cycle for your council. Now, some councils, it might be 2 or 3 years for your election cycle. So as a best practice, we're recommending that you do this once a year, again, to keep these guiding principles and the rules that you've agreed on top of mind and every year. That way you can review it or suggest any changes. Now that you've got your updated content for section 2, as well as section 1 that was released a few months ago, we might want to protect some time to review the changes in greater detail. It's always helpful to re-familiarize yourself with some of the functions and legislative powers of a residence council. Also helpful to review the various council structures and the leadership styles. Is your current council meeting structure serving your council well and maximizing engagement? Would the council benefit from a trial of a new model of leadership? Take some time to review your own role in the process of enhancing the council in your home. So whether you're a resident leader, a resident council assistant, an administrator, or another team member utilizing the resource guide, take a look at how you can contribute in positive ways to enhance the council moving forward. Perhaps you're taking away a few new ideas. We also urge you to review some of the qualities of an effective residence council that we've listed in the guide. Are there any new ideas listed here that you'd like to try or adopt? We've got a few action items here for you to take note of as our video comes to a close. I would urge you now to print the refreshed sections for your resource guide. So if you haven't done so already, you can print the updated section 1 and section 2 and replace them, get rid of the old sections and replace the new ones into your resource guide binder. You may also replace the appendix. So at the back of your binder, we have an updated list of sources of information and support. And this list has been updated and refreshed as well. So please print and replace your appendix. I also wanted to note that we will be releasing an updated table of contents at the same time as we release section 4. That way, all the updated page numbers throughout each section will be accurate. So that's why we've held off on publishing the table of contents, because those numbers will continue to change with every updated section. It's very helpful to keep hard copy printouts of your resident council documents and other supportive materials for easy reference. So you might consider adding a copy of your residence council bylaw document at the back of section 2. Other items that you may wish to add for easy reference could be a copy of your home's mission statement, the information that your residence council has created to be shared with new residents, whether in the home's move-in package, or perhaps a resident council has a welcoming committee and you're hand delivering something to a new resident in the home. So many councils have created their own information sheet or brochure, so it's handy to keep a copy of that for reference. You might also want to keep a copy of your most recent satisfaction survey and a summary of the results. Some councils also use their resource guide to house copies of a recent inspection report. You could have your home's most recent menu cycle, and it's also helpful to have on hand your home or your organization's current complaint resolution policy. I wanted to say thank you very much for tuning in to today's video update for Section 2 of the OARC Resource Guide, Supporting Your Home's Residence Council. If you have any questions about Section 2 or the Resource Guide as a whole, please feel free to reach out to the OARC team by phone or by email, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you and take care.